This story is something which I cannot explain. The experience changed my life and future once and for all. So just sit back, relax, close your eyes, and listen. The concert buzz stayed with us, even hours after the last notes faded. 5 of us, filled with excitement and leftover energy from the music, squeezed into Jake's old car for the long drive back. Jake, always adventurous, laughed at the GPS's route and said, "I found a shortcut online. Saves us an hour. Easy." We cheered, happy to shorten the trip. Just before the turn-off, we stopped at a rundown gas station. The old pumps cast long shadows in the fading light. The attendant, with a weathered face like the cracked pavement, looked at us with suspicion and pity. "Going down the old Collector's Road, are ya?" he asked, his voice dry and raspy. We exchanged nervous glances. "The what?" Sarah, our group's skeptic, raised an eyebrow. The attendant leaned closer, whispering, "They say there's a collector who stalks that road, a masked figure who takes trophies from his victims. Just watch yourselves." We laughed it off, thinking it was just a local legend meant to scare outsiders. The old Collector's Road was nothing like the highway. It was a winding, narrow road, swallowed by overgrown trees and silent as if forgotten. The stillness was broken only by the sound of gravel crunching under our tires. Suddenly the engine sputtered and died. Panic surged as fast as the fumes of the last gasoline. Jake cursed and fiddled with the dashboard. Smoke billowed from the hood, filling the air with a pungent smell. We were stranded in the middle of nowhere. The silence that followed the engine's death was terrifying. As the initial panic subsided, an eerie quiet settled. Then we saw him, a figure in the distance, silhouetted against the fading light, masked, cloaked, ominous. The collector seemed real. Fear slithered down our spines. We were 5 against 1, but he emanated an unnatural stillness and power. Sarah, the most athletic, suggested we confront him, hoping our numbers would scare him off. We approached cautiously, a tense silence between us. He remained still, like a statue. Sarah, filled with adrenaline, took the lead. "We don't want any trouble," she said, her voice trembling. "We just need help with our car." There was no response. The masked figure moved slightly, then lunged at Sarah with impossible speed. Her scream was cut short. He pinned her down, took her silver necklace, and vanished with her into the undergrowth. We froze, paralyzed by shock and fear. John, a burly football player, snapped out of it first. "We have to get out of here," he shouted, his voice thick with terror. We scattered into the dense foliage, the damp leaves muffling our frantic footsteps. But the collector was relentless. We heard twigs snap and leaves rustle behind us. One by one he picked us off. Each time there was a scream, a struggle, then silence. Each time he reappeared from the shadows with a new trophy, a watch, a wallet, a keychain. I was the last one. The forest seemed to tighten around me. My lungs burned, my legs screamed, but I dared not stop. I stumbled upon a dilapidated shack, its windows boarded up, paint peeling. A flicker of hope surged within me. I burst through the creaking door, slamming it shut and bracing it with a fallen plank. The sound echoed in the dusty, decaying interior. I huddled in the corner, heart hammering, tears blurring my vision. Footsteps circled the shack, slow and deliberate. Each crunch of gravel was a blow against my sanity. He tried the door once, the wood groaning. Then silence. I held my breath, fear twisting my insides. The silence stretched, broken only by my pounding heart. Hesitantly, I crept to the door and peered through a crack in the boarded window. I saw nothing. No figure, no mask glinting in the moonlight. Relief flooded me, nearly buckling my knees. I waited, straining to hear beyond my frantic heartbeats. Silence. With trembling hands, I loosened the barricade and opened the door. Cool night air washed over me. I took a tentative step forward, scanning the darkness. The coast was clear. Adrenaline surged. I sprinted towards a faint glow in the distance, the gas station we'd stopped at earlier. Relief washed over me. I burst through the doors, collapsing onto the floor. The old attendant, with his weathered face and unsettling smile, looked at me with concern and amusement. "Thought you wouldn't make it back," he said, his voice like dry leaves rustling. I stammered out my story. He listened patiently, a knowing glint in his eyes. When I finished, he chuckled, a raspy sound. "You think you outsmarted him?" he asked, whispering conspiratorially. Cold dread bloomed in my stomach. I looked around the gas station. My eyes landed on the display case behind the counter. There, among packs of cigarettes and trinkets, were my friend's stolen belongings: Sarah's necklace, John's wallet, Jake's watch. The realization hit me. I hadn't escaped the collector. The shack, the gas station, the concern. It was all part of his game. He'd let me believe I was free just to snatch that hope away. Terror choked me. I turned back to the attendant, his face shadowed by his hat. "You were the collector, weren't you?" I rasped. The attendant smiled, a thin, cruel smile. "Just another happy customer," he said. But the nightmare wasn't over. A flicker of movement caught my eye. I turned, and a scream ripped from my throat. There, in the doorway, stood the masked collector. He hadn't left. He'd been playing with me, savoring my false hope. The terror returned, echoing through the gas station. The collector took a step forward, his movements fluid and predatory. I stumbled back, trapped. He raised a gloved hand, and I braced for the end. But then, something unexpected happened. The old attendant stepped forward, blocking my view of the collector. "Leave him," the attendant said firmly. "He's seen too much." The collector hesitated, then nodded and melted into the shadows. The old attendant turned back to me, expression unreadable. "Consider it a discount," he said dryly, "for the entertainment you've provided." I stumbled out, the stolen items burning a hole in my pocket. The forest seemed darker now, the silence broken only by my pounding heart. I walked for hours, the stolen items reminding me of my friends and the attendant's dark secret. I escaped the collector, but his cruelty and the attendant's game would haunt me.